Good afternoon and welcome to Live Impact News here on the 13 News Now app. It is 1 o'clock p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, June 11th, everybody, and we are here with 2 hours of a very full itinerary as far as we can tell right now. We already have live events starting up on our board, but before we get to all of that, we have some people that we want and need to address in studio. First of all, on the ones and twos for the start of the show for the first time, producer Dom in the house. Dom, hello. How are we? How are you?
I'm good.
Well, you got to put the microphone down if you want to chat. I'm kidding. It's the other microphone. So this is just not the welcome party that you need from your host here.
You're giving me a rough start here.
Now, Dom has been with us for some time. He does our 6 p.m. show and our 11 p.m. show. He participated in our NFL draft special. He has been in here with us training, and now he is on the ones and twos. And Dom, welcome. We're happy to have you here. Now, Dom is not alone. You can see Nia Campbell, the People's producer, watching very closely over his shoulder. There's been a debate about where she should sit. This is a whole different deal for Nia Campbell, but she is teaching Dom the ways, and she is, I think, maybe especially here to keep an eye on myself and meteorologist Hunter Forst. Hunter is also in the house. Now, Hunter got big kudos on the way into the studio today. Dom, if we could take the two-shot with Hunter and I want to do a demonstration. When I walked into the studio and I saw Nia Campbell, I was like, oh my gosh, hi, Nia. It's so good to see you. Nia gave me one of these. She said, and then she went back to helping Dom. Hunter Forst came in the studio and said, hey, how's it going, Nia? And it was like, it was welcome. It was like he just got home for Christmas break or something like that. She was so excited to see him. So, Hunter, I will spend the rest of this day trying to embody your essence and your aura so that I can get some welcomes like that in the studio.
Well, here's a little bit.
It was inspiring to see. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. Now, Hunter, not only are you here to spread general good vibes, but you're here to tell us about a weather impact alert that we are, currently in?
Yeah, heat and the chance for some severe weather, especially tomorrow.
Okay.
So, weather impact alert today and tomorrow. Double whammy. Main threat for today is looking to be the heat. Severe weather threat a little bit tonight, especially in areas off towards our north. But for the south side, eastern North Carolina, not looking too bad, but you may see a pop-up shower or thunderstorm. Certainly not out of the question. Heading into this evening and tomorrow evening, some of them could have some gusty winds, a little bit of hail, of course, some heavy downpours, which we certainly do need. So you want to stay weather aware over the next couple of days. But it is just muggy stepping out the door. 74-degree dew point outside right now. Connor was saying earlier that is just a degree below disrespectful. Mm-hmm. And that is correct. It really does feel disrespectful stepping outside. Forecasting an actual high of around 97 today. Current record 98. We'll see if we tie it. Could we break it? Certainly a possibility. But as we take a look at the heat indices for today, 100 degrees across the board. 102 in Norfolk, 101 in Newport News, 103 in Chesapeake. Let's see what it's like out there right now. Oh, 92 at Norfolk, feeling like 102 outside right now. So that water looks extremely refreshing. And it's going to stay that way heading into tomorrow as well. 103, 102, 102 Newport News, 103 in Malfa tomorrow afternoon. So it's going to be a hot Friday. But there's going to be a cold front coming through Friday night, so that will knock down humidity fairly quickly.
This graphic just looked hot. That whole thing, it just looks hot. I can feel the humidity coming off the screen right now.
You really can. We have a heat advisory in effect for parts of the area for feels like temperatures well over 100 degrees, 103 to 108. That's for through this afternoon into the evening, and we will likely have another one tomorrow as well. Now, people are hanging out at the beach. It's a great beach, like a great day to get into the water because it looks calm. Rip current risks are low. UV index is high, so of course you want to wear your sunscreen, wear a hat, some shade. But it's a great day to get into the water. It's in the low 70s, very refreshing. Feels like temperatures 102 in Norfolk, 99 in Virginia Beach, 100 in Hampton, 99 in Newport News, 101 in Suffolk, 98 in Elizabeth City, feels like 94 in Manio. So it's feeling a little brutal out there this afternoon. But satellite radar's looking good out there right now. Not a whole lot to worry about. But over the next couple of hours, you may see a pop-up shower or thunderstorm. But overall, heading into Friday morning, already at 8 o'clock, we're in the low 80s. 83 in Norfolk, 81 in Elizabeth City. This is 8:15 Friday. 8:15 a.m.
Wow.
By the afternoon, we're in the upper 90s. Could we hit 100 degrees?
Yes.
You never know.
Ooh.
Oh,
Maybe.
maybe.
Norfolk, it looks like, is on that route.
It's going to be close for Friday. Then by Friday night, 8, 9 o'clock, we're going to see a cold front moving in. This looks to be a bit more widespread than today. So a higher chance to see rain and a severe storm tomorrow compared to today. So between about 8 and 11 o'clock at night, we're going to see some rain, thunderstorms pushing in. Could see some heavy rain as well. And then by 12, 1 o'clock, we clear out. And Saturday morning is looking good. Upper 70s. We'll have a north wind, so it'll be less humid. But there's that severe weather threat for today. A level 1 around the south side up through Hampton, and a level 2 through the eastern shore, Melfa, Tappahannock, Richmond. So a higher risk for a severe storm the further north you go, and a less risk the further south you go. Tomorrow, that level 2 risk shifts further down to the south. So pretty much all of Hampton roads, except for areas around the Admiral Sound. So Elizabeth City, Edenton, Ahoskie around has that level 1 threat. Pretty much the state line north has a level 2 threat for some severe weather out of 5. Heading into the weekend, though, 91 degrees on Saturday, lower humidity, mostly sunny. So Saturday's definitely looking like a good beach day. 95 on Sunday. Could see some showers or storms heading into the afternoon. But one thing I want to talk about tonight, not much relief. 78 for a low. That's too much.
That's a hot and humid night out there.
I want a hot day, cold night.
You think the sun goes down and you'll get a little relief, but that humidity really prevents that from taking hold, I feel like.
Correct.
So high dew points. But again, I think Saturday, we're all going to get paid back for this 2-day stretch of heat that we got coming on. That Saturday looks tremendous.
It still will be hot, just not humid.
Not humid.
So
That's the key.
That's the key. So upper 70s tonight for lows, just brutal. And then tomorrow, again hot. Upper 90s, 96, 97, 98 degrees, feeling like 103, 104. And then in the evening, we'll see that cold front moving in, dropping temperatures, dropping humidity, but bringing some showers and thunderstorms, some of which could be on the stronger side. So weather impact alert both today and tomorrow, lower humidity on Saturday, but staying hot even into next week as well.
Okay, excellent. Now, Hunter Forrest, morning shows, Live Impact News AM edition, our noon show, Live Impact News PM edition. Scale 1 to 10, how tired are you right now? It's okay to be vulnerable here.
7.5.
7.5. Fair enough. Hunter, thank you so much for all of your hard work today, and especially staying past the end of your shift to help us here on Live Impact News.
Anything for you guys.
You mean that?
Yep.
Hey, likewise. We appreciate you. Hunter Forrest with a wonderful forecast for us here. Stay safe in that heat, everybody. It may seem like it's not going to have those kinds of effects on you, but very quickly you can have any number of heat-related issues, and then you can become too disoriented to even solve them. So stay hydrated, stay cool, find shade, all of the above. Now, for us here, we are going to find time for a commercial break. When we get back, I would say it's very likely we head out to Texas for another update on the New World Screwworm. Stay with us. All right, welcome back here to Live Impact News. As stated before, we're going to head live straight out to Texas, where the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, is speaking about that New World screwworm. The New World screwworm has not really been a problem here in the United States since the 1960s. It is now, and it is threatening the $100 billion plus cattle industry, an industry that is already under some duress economically. So let's listen in on the Secretary of Agriculture as she speaks about this issue live in the state of Texas.
In silos, and that has been, I believe, the game changer here, why we have been able to move so quickly, staff up so much, break ground, open dispersal facilities. Matapa comes online in just a couple of weeks at literally record speed, realizing that we started at ground zero about a year ago, year and a couple months. So thank you.
Yesterday in the hearing, you talked about the last administration not really doing much, watching this fly move north. There's also a lot of comments about Doge cuts. Can you talk about that, if that's impacted where we're at today or got us to where we're at today?
No, absolutely. Doge cuts had zero to do. And in fact, you can just look at the specifics of the response from USDA in particular. When we walked in the door, late January of 2025, there were only 10 full-time staff left over from the last administration that were fully focused on the screwworm. Fully focused, just 10 full-time combination. Last May, or just a month or two ago, well, we just got out of May, I'm losing my timeline here. A couple of weeks ago, we had more than 120 full-time staff who were focused on this issue. That's a 1,000% increase. So the people that are back and saying that Doge has basically caused this could not be further from the truth. What we have been able to do is allocate resources in a priority way that allows us to make sure that what we're doing with the taxpayer dollar is prioritized and important, but that we're leaning in at 1,000% increase into what we knew was coming. We worked for a year to keep it out. Every model showed that this particular part of the state in America would be infested by last summer. That's what all the models showed, just based on the movement of the fly. Through the Darien Gap in 2021, through Central America in 2022, 2023, hitting Mexico in 2024. But we've been able to hold it back. We closed the ports. We worked with Mexico. We deployed so many of our resources in Mexico to hold it back, to prepare for this moment. But zero to do. In fact, we've actually been able to scale up much larger than anybody else to get ready for this.
Is there any investigation into how...
Yeah, he's doing good.
All right.
Yeah, good questions. Good questions.
I have a list of them now. So, I mean, how did it get to Zavala County, this fly? Is there any investigation into that?
Yes, we are, and I'll let the Admiral add a little bit more. But when you look at the polygon and how this team is incredible, how they have moved the polygon based on where the flies have been. I mean, that's one of the main reasons we've been able to keep it out of Texas, is where we've been deploying a limited amount of sterile flies, but 100 million a week. It's not tiny, but deploying through the last year into different parts of northern Mexico to keep it at bay and moving along. It's four-dimensional chess at this point. So I'll let the Admiral lean into that a little bit more, but what I will say is we're still looking at it. There's some wind that we're looking at. We're looking at the weather patterns, trying to understand how it was that it jumped this far up. But Admiral, if you want to join into that.
Well, I don't know if you can mention the cattle smuggling. Is that being looked at as well?
100%. The illicit movement of cattle alongside the open border policies of the last administration, no question, is the reason that we're standing here today. It is 100% the reason, and no real effort to push it back and to keep it out. So that's exactly right. But one other thing I'll say about the fly dropping here, within a matter of, I think what one of our great guys said, 24 to 48 hours, it was actually within a matter of about 8 hours. We had flies redirected, moved to this part of the state, dropped by that evening. And again, other than one other case about 5 miles away at the same time, there's been no other cases in this part of the state. It tells you the sterile fly technology works, and that's why it's so important. Go ahead.
As far as the overall understanding as far as why there might be the movement of the fly towards Zavala County. And so as the Secretary mentioned, back in early August last year, the Secretary had worked with the White House to be able to come up with a new idea, a new plan to be able to coordinate all of the different federal agencies and departments in the federal government. And so consequently being able to lean on those resources and to have one element at USDA that can synchronize each of those efforts has been a pretty exciting thing. The reason that's important is as we look at those models that I had mentioned a little while ago and being able to have those predictive analytics and forecasting, it's really dependent on the data that are out there. So the more data we have, the better the models become. So consequently, your question about illegal cattle movement, it's not just about the federal partners who are working on the animal health stuff, such as, for example, not just limited to USDA, but also HHS, EPA, Department of Interior, et cetera, but the whole gamut of federal departments and agencies, including Department of War, Department of Homeland Security, helping us to get as much data as we can to understand all of the movement, whether it's licit or illicit. And so being able to lean on all of those resources is incredibly important. And so as far as why it had come to this particular county, it feels like months to me, but it's only been about a week. And so we're going to need to keep gathering data and keep needing to understand a variety of different factors. So that could be cases that we have known about, cases that we didn't know about. As the Secretary mentioned, we have thousands of traps that are out. We have traps that have been able to be deployed in Mexico, as well as the United States, for a very long time. The reason is as the Secretary said, models suggest that it was going to be here last summer. So we had plenty of time to prepare. So consequently, we actually have a playbook on how to do this, what we're doing, what you're seeing here. It's the New World Screwworm Playbook at screwworm.gov. If you go to that particular website, you'll see here's what USDA is doing. There's no mystery. And the reason this is important is that has been not only developed and made by USDA, but developed and made by our partners. And so we've done this in conjunction with Texas Animal Health, as well as everybody else that you see here, to come up with a literal playbook on how to address this. And so yes, as these fly cases come up, we know how to do it. We know how to address it. If you see it, tell us, and we can drop those flies, just as he had said.
Yeah.
You had mentioned there's no impact to the food at all as of right now. What is the concern if this doesn't get contained?
Well, the concern, we look back at the 1950s and 1960s, and I mean, that on this very land, the destruction of our livestock industry and the decades it took to recover from that, that's what we are working, and we will. I mean, it's an entirely new day. We have more technology, we have more treatment. I mean, like I said, the baby calf from a couple of weeks ago is happy and fine and completely healed. You can't even really see the wound. That's just from 6 days ago when it was first confirmed. But the importance of farm security, ranch security to national security, the importance of making sure that in America we can feed and fuel ourselves, understanding that in 2023, America became, for the first time in our history, a net food importer, meaning up until that point, we moved, we fed ourselves and then we sold the world our incredible agriculture products. In 2023, that changed for the first time ever, where we began to import more food than to export. I mean, these are fundamental, perhaps existential issues to the future of our country. And so I don't mean to be overly dramatic and cast gigantic visions here, but that's literally what we're fighting for. And if we can't protect these ranchers, and they're our partners in all of this, and ensure that we can protect our food supply and protect this way of life, then we will lose freedom in this country. That's how important this is.
Last thing for me.
Yes.
I know there's other states around here. I've seen notices from their, agriculture departments putting notices out, basically. Are you working with other states or just Texas? What about, New Mexico?
Oh, yes. No, we are all leaned in on the states that we're really focused on are Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, and California right now. But to put it in perspective, we've known that the screwworm was within 60 miles of the Texas border a year ago. 80 miles of the Texas border a year ago. It's 400 miles from New Mexico and about 700, 800 miles from Arizona. So this is why we've put so many of our resources into Texas. But yes, working with every state every day. I'm in touch with almost every ag secretary of each of the states in the country. Also their governors. I'm going to get in the car and talk to the Arizona governor in just a minute, New Mexico governor, et cetera. So this is, again, all hands on deck approach. As these states are protecting their own borders, there's also the importance of us talking to each other, making sure we're not compromising our sheep and goat industry in this state. It's very important. We talk a lot about cattle. We'll always talk a lot about cattle. It is Texas, but our sheep and goat industry is a major agricultural industry in Texas and across New Mexico and Arizona. So ensuring that they have what they need so that they're not destroyed. Our wildlife industry, our hunting industry in South Texas is a massive income producer with a lot of fawns, et cetera. So this is a very complicated policy challenge, but it is one that we have faced before, we've beaten before, with a lot less tools in our toolkit. But that's what we're building out now so that this will never happen again.
Any changes to what sort of animals can come across the border now?
No, we've had the ports closed for a year now, so we have not let any animals across the port because it is so close to Texas. But we haven't let them in through New Mexico or Arizona either. That will obviously continue until we have a better understanding of what we're dealing with. But the case that was confirmed positive in New Mexico, of the 7 cases, I think 6 are here, and then there's the one in New Mexico. That was a companion animal, a dog, that based on all of our information came from Mexico. So the importance of, we've now deployed, before even this case was confirmed, we've deployed our dogs. Our dogs we've now trained for USDA dogs for the USDA screwworm snout, and they're now at all the border openings. We are looking at people bringing their dogs and cats over. We're going to be really, really strict about that. And you'll see more on that as well. I talked to and was with, a couple of us were with Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen yesterday in Washington. In fact, I have Dr. Sean Connolly here, right there. Come over here, Sean, from the Department of Homeland Security. He was former President Trump's personal doctor in the first term, but now has a policy role on this. I'll let you say a couple things too, Dr. Connolly. But the importance of, again, across the federal agencies, Department of Homeland Security, we talked yesterday about using their drones and perhaps through very quick innovation, having an artificial intelligence piece of this, where you put AI on the drones that they can fly across all of our millions of acres of wildlife in this state. That we need to be solving for and preparing for as well. So, Dr. Connolly, I'm sorry, I should have had you up here to begin with. It's great to have you in South Texas.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And I bring greetings from Secretary Mullen and Homeland Security. It's just a testament, really, to the working group and the Undersecretary and the Admiral and everyone that this is a whole of government approach. And food security is national security. And so Homeland Security there, whether it's on the borders, screening companion animals or individuals as they're crossing borders, whether it is research within our science and technology groups, working with Texas A&M, and we're just throwing everything out there. Whatever we can do, whatever the question is, whatever resource we have that may add to the problem set, the Department of Homeland Security is there and getting after it.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Connolly. Do you have a question? We got all of them. Anybody else?
Just talking about the screwworm, what is the screwworm? A lot of people might not know what it is.
Yes, I know.
Flies and everything, but what do they do and how bad?
Yeah, just give a little level set. We're also in the weeds. We kind of assume. Admiral, do you want to answer that question?
Sure. The New World screwworm is a parasite, and it is a parasite that can affect any warm-blooded organism. And so that could be potentially humans, but the vast majority of the time it does relate to wildlife or livestock or animals in general. And so there's a lot of misperceptions and misconceptions out there. Screwworm.gov, for everybody who's able to take a look at that, has some great explanations. The thing about the screwworm is it's been around for a very long time. And as the Secretary had mentioned, we've been able to address it in the past, push it out of the United States, push it out of Mexico, push it out of Central America. And we've done it before. We know how to do it, and we'll do it again. The screwworm itself doesn't live very long, generally about 21 days. When that screwworm does perish, what we're hoping is that it perish because it never made it. And the reason is because, as the Secretary had mentioned, our biggest arsenal that we have right now is the 100 million sterile flies that we have in Panama. That we ship up here, and as was shown right behind me here, this is one of the particular ways that we disperse these flies. And so what we have found is, like most organisms, the New World screwworm propagates by mating, and so consequently what we're trying to do is to get that fly to mate with a sterile fly and then not to be able to produce offspring. And what we have seen, again, over years and decades actually, is that by doing this, you can in fact suppress a population. The big thing about the New World screwworm fly is it looks very similar to other flies. And so consequently, there's a lot of pictures out there that you'll see. The New World screwworm flies are very similar to many other types of blowflies. And so consequently, it's really important to do a couple of different things. If you see something, say something. Use Texas Animal Health, use Texas Park and Wildlife, and help them help you to be able to identify those flies. Number two, if we're using surveillance traps and you've been grateful enough or gracious enough to be able to allow us to go on your lands to be able to put these traps and these ground release chambers, please don't touch the flies. Let the flies do their work. And at the end of the day, if you see flies on traps, As was mentioned by our experts here, we do dye them, and so we can dye them to determine that these are, again, we dye the sterile flies, and we dye them to be able to determine where they come from. And so consequently, this is a pest. It's something that can be assessed, it's something that can be seen, and it's something that can be taken care of very easily.
Yeah, let me just say a screwworm is actually a fly. That's what's confusing to everyone. And what Admiral Schmoyer outlined is the bad fly is a female who has been is in reproduction, has landed in an open wound. That's why you'll hear, cover the wounds of your animals, keep really close contact. The calf that's now fully recovered, it was an umbilical cord, a 3-day-old calf that a fly landed, laid her eggs, and then it's that larva that actually eats around the wound. And if it's treated, it's 100% ability to beat it back, and that's what we're seeing today. And again, FDA has fast-tracked all of these treatments. We're so grateful to our friends at FDA and everyone leaning in on this. Thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, Secretary Brooke Rollins speaking extensively there about this issue. We've been covering this issue quite a bit. This is something that would have wide-ranging implications on food supply, the economy, the farming industry, and obviously it's something being taken very seriously because we have seen Secretary of Agriculture Rollins in front of the camera more often in the past 2 weeks than is usual here, as they are being very public in tackling this issue. Now, you heard her mention 100 million sterile flies per week being released into areas where this could be an issue. 100 million sterile flies per week. Now, you're thinking, okay, we're just putting more bugs into a situation where bugs are the problem. Well, there is sort of a natural counterbalance that occurs in ecosystems by introducing the sterile fly. The New World screwworm passes away after it mates. So a New World screwworm is able to mate one time and then it passes away. By putting sterile flies into the equation, New World screwworms will now mate with those flies and then pass away. And the eggs that they lay will not come to hatch because they mated with a sterile fly. So this is a means of control of the New World screwworm population, hence the 100 million sterile flies being released per week in that area. Okay, as for us, we are going to take a break here on Live Impact News. More live events, more major stories when we return. Okay, back here in the studio, Live Impact News. We're going to move forward to an event that actually wrapped just before we started our stream this afternoon. This goes back to a tragic incident that happened much earlier on that we covered here on 13 News Now. This is in regards to the man who killed a former Minnesota House Speaker and her husband while also seriously injuring another lawmaker and his wife. That individual, Vance Bolter, has entered guilty pleas to murder and stalking charges. Entering those guilty pleas has essentially ensured that he will not be put to death. So again, guilty pleas to murder and stalking charges along with firearms offenses during a court hearing that happened today in Minneapolis. This comes nearly a year after those political assassinations. Specifically, it was Democrat Melissa Hortman and her husband in one shooting. In a separate shooting, Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were wounded, both by Vance Bolter, who has, again, entered guilty pleas to the charges in those crimes. He will not be put to death, likely as a result of that guilty plea, or at least it ensures that he won't be put to death due to entering that guilty plea. The government recommended a sentence of 2 consecutive life terms plus 40 years. That recommendation was accepted by the judge. The conclusion of undoubtedly a tragic saga here. And we heard reaction in a press conference earlier today from the Department of Justice. Let's take a listen.
Release. Those that would commit political violence, those that would commit political violence at any level should take heed. The Department of Justice will seek and obtain the longest prison terms available for your crimes. I want to thank the outstanding team of prosecutors here in our office who have been on this case since its first hours. Assistant U.S. Attorney Brad Endicott, Assistant U.S. Attorney Matt Forbes are extraordinarily smart, committed, and talented prosecutors, and today's guilty pleas on all counts and the defendant's agreement to the longest possible prison term on all counts is a direct result of their work. I also want to thank the leadership of this office prior to my arrival here, whose work on this case from the very first moments of it were also critical to the final outcome. Today's plea agreement would not be possible without the outstanding work of federal law enforcement. Our partners, Chris Dotson and Spencer Burnett, the special agent in charge of the FBI and the assistant special agent in charge of ATF, respectively, are here behind me. Their work goes on every single day. Nothing we do in this office can happen without them. I want to thank local law enforcement who are represented here, the chiefs of police of the Minneapolis Police Department, the Champlain Police Department, and the Brooklyn Park Police Department, whom we depended on in this case and we depend on a daily basis for federal prosecution. And finally, I want to thank our great partner, Drew Evans of the Minnesota BCA, a true professional with whom we have the pleasure and honor to work on so many matters critical to Minnesotans. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. So I'm just going to ask, and we'll start with Paul, if you would do me the favor of just telling me your name and the organization that you're here reporting with, I would appreciate it.
Paul Bloom, Fox 9 News. Question about taking the death penalty off the table. We understood there's some, what happened with the Mangione case, that whether that stalking murder combination was in fact a capital punishment type of charge in the end. How did your office come down on it? How did the Attorney General make this final decision?
Yeah, and I know there was some confusing news reports out over the weekend, and perhaps I can eliminate that confusion. First of all, I think it's now out as a public document, the Attorney General's direction in this case that he issued last Friday. And I will tell you, the Attorney General and I see this thing the exact same way and are in complete agreement on it. The direction that we had was that we will not seek the death penalty provided Mr. Belter enters into the plea agreement that you all saw him enter into today. And that was the only circumstance under which the death penalty was off the table. We do believe, we continue to believe, this case was charged right. You raised, Paul, the question of the Mangione case and some murkiness that that the fallout from that case may create around death penalty law and some of the statutes that relate to it. But what I can tell you is that we certainly believe that this case as charged, which had important differences from the Mangione charges, that this case as charged was certainly death penalty eligible, and we would have prevailed in that ultimately in the courts. But the truth is, when you have a defendant that is prepared to plead guilty, take consecutive life terms plus, to ensure that he never sees freedom again in his entire life, that was an opportunity that we just could not pass up. Yes, sir.
Max Nesrock with Minnesota Reformer. Did the staffing issues in the U.S. Attorney's Office play a role at all in making the decision to accept the plea deal and not seek the death penalty?
First of all, one, and everybody here should know, this office is more staffed today than it was on the day that I arrived. We have already hired more assistant U.S. attorneys than left during the surge. We also are supplemented by reinforcements from elsewhere in the country and in Washington, D.C. There is no staffing issue in the U.S. Attorney's Office. We could use some very, very valuable support staff. I think every U.S. Attorney's Office around the country would like that. And if you are a qualified paralegal, please apply to our office. But I will tell you, there is absolutely no staffing issue that affects any case in this office, and it certainly didn't affect this one. Lou.
Lou Regoose from Care 11. When the charges were filed at that time, Vince Belter was spouting what could be described as either delusional or conspiracy theory type statements about why he did this. What made him go from that to today, essentially in the factual basis, admitting to every factor that the evidence seemed to show?
Well, Lou, of course, we don't communicate directly with the defendant, and we certainly don't communicate directly with the defendant in this case. What I assume that what led him to do that today is what he swore under oath today, and that is that every element of what was alleged was absolutely the truth. Yes, sir.
Matt Sefig at NPR News. Was the death penalty the leverage that you needed to get this plea agreement? If not for that threat, would he have pleaded guilty and accepted the consecutive life sentences?
Well, again, I'm not going to put myself in the mind of Mr. Belter or his counsel, but what I can tell you is that the terms of our offer to Mr. Belter were, if you plead guilty and take consecutive life sentences, we will take the death penalty off the table. Yes, ma'am.
Taylor Rivera, WCCO Radio. What precedents do you think it sets in future political violence cases by taking the death penalty off the table in this case?
Well, again, we didn't take the death penalty off the table. We made an agreement that said that we will not seek the death penalty provided he agrees to serve the longest prison time possible under the law for every single one of the counts. And I would say that the precedent that it sets is that if you want to commit political violence at any level, no matter what it is, that we are going to seek the longest and strongest prison terms for your offense. Yes, ma'am.
Kira Pedraza, KSTP. At what point did it seem like this plea agreement was going to move forward?
I think that's a question I really best not answer, and I apologize for that. But I don't want to get into the back and forth between ourselves and the defendant. At all times in this office, we have to be respectful of the rights of criminal defendants, even those that are as brutally murderous as this one. Yes, sir.
Connor White, WCCO TV. In reference to Lou's question from earlier, trial might have presented the opportunity for closer cross-examination, as people still wonder why this happened nearly a year ago to the day. Have you learned anything more about what actually motivated the violence that night?
So I think that's the same question as I got earlier, and again, we don't have the opportunity to speak directly with Mr. Belter, and what we do know is, and what we certainly expect, is that what motivated his guilty plea here is that he was guilty of everything. With regard to why it is that, with regard to what it is that controls the criminal mind and what drives a criminal to want to commit this sort of brutal murder and to do it as coldly as it was done, I wonder if any of us who live law-abiding lives will ever really be able to understand that sort of motivation. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mitch Smith, the New York Times. I'm curious, were state prosecutors involved in all the plea negotiations with your
hearing, does today's outcome affect at all what they're pursuing at the state level?
So the federal prosecution is separate from the state prosecution. I certainly would encourage you to speak to the state prosecutors, and we don't have information as to what might happen in that prosecution, and we certainly invite them to proceed in whatever way they think is appropriate. And I'm trying to make sure I'm covered everybody. Have I had you? Matt? Yes. Matt, you get the first, second round.
I have another question. The magistrate judge in this case was critical of the timing and the length of time that it took to come to a decision about the death penalty. Can you talk a little bit more about why it took so long in this case? With the Mangione case, it was less than 4 months.
Yeah, and I understand where Judge Foster was coming from on that, because we anticipated having our death penalty recommendation up to the Attorney General prior to that particular hearing. It is true that because of some reframing of issues, that was, or I should say re-examination of issues, reframing and re-examination of issues stimulated by the outcome of the Mangione case, we needed to go back and make sure that we were addressing those particular issues. And then I think, as you're all probably aware, our recommendation went up, I think, within about a week, maybe not even, maybe 10 days of that particular hearing. But so there ended up actually not being any delay at all. Yes, sir.
Connor, again with
Yeah.
WCCO TV. Often there could be a negative connotation to a plea agreement for some people who may feel that you should be going after the absolute highest penalty possible. I noticed that you were speaking with Senator Hoffman as you came into the courtroom. Has there been conversations with victims, the family of victims, ahead of time? Is there satisfaction, so to speak, with where this is shaped out today?
So actually, federal law actually requires us to be communicating with victims and the immediate families of victims at certain critical points along the process. We, of course, followed that law, and we have been in communication with them. I certainly want to respect all of the victims' privacy and I would just encourage you to present whatever questions they're prepared to entertain so that they can really answer for themselves. And we're just going to kind of go back clockwise again. Back, Lou.
Yeah, and this is just for clarity. Are you able to tell us when you made that recommendation, if it was to the Attorney General to recommend to seek it when you guys sent that up? And are you able to say if the family wanted the death penalty or if they wanted life in prison?
Well, with regard to the latter part, again, I want to defer to the family with regard to any expressions of what their wishes may have been. You know, one of the if I could pronounce the word, we'd all be better off. One of the peculiarities of the Justice Department guidelines is that while we don't generally say what our recommendations to the Attorney General was, I am 100% free to tell you there is absolutely no daylight between me and the Attorney General on this, and we see it the exact same way. And hopefully that's a sufficient answer to your question. Lou?
All right, welcome back here in the studio. That press conference ongoing, hearing some details. Other questions being asked, too, about the staffing of the Department of Justice and the Attorney General's office, things like that. But with an extra focus on that plea deal that was entered in today by Vance Bolter, 2 life sentences plus 40 years handed down by the judge on the government's recommendation. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break here on Live Impact News. When we come back, we are going to cover the start of one of the world's greatest events culturally and athletically that happens to be right here in North America. Little World Cup coverage coming up next. All right, back here in the live Impact studio. We appreciate everybody joining us today because it is a very special day. Not just a Friday Eve, which you know we love around here, but it is also the start of the World Cup today. This is, for my money, it's right there with the Olympics and maybe even surpasses the Olympics as that combination of global cultures coming together along with sport at the very highest level. Globally, soccer, still the most popular sport in the world, or football as they call it. Naya, what should I go with for our World Cup coverage? Should I become a football guy, or should I just keep calling it soccer like, I always have?
The world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Now, I am going to stay with soccer because, I got to stay true to myself, right, Dom? I can't start trying to sound cool just because the World Cup has started. You know what does sound cool? 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Mexico, South Africa, in Mexico City. Here's a live look in Mexico City right now as the festivities have already began. You can see the smattering of green jerseys representing Mexico. Games will be held in Mexico, the United States, and Canada as well. That first game in the United States tomorrow, 9 o'clock p.m., SoFi Stadium in California. Yes, where the Rams play. Yes, where the Chargers play. Yes, where the Super Bowl is this year, but also where the United States makes their World Cup debut against Paraguay tomorrow night. So the World Cup kicking off today. And we'll have coverage of this as it goes along, not just the U.S. team, but all of the various excitement and events around the World Cup. And that includes these host cities taking on a tremendous burden to try and provide the most comfortable stay here in the United States or elsewhere that fans from around the world could possibly experience. And that includes air travel, which is obviously a major issue when it comes to flying all throughout the world into one destination to see games. We heard from LAX officials earlier today, and I do believe this is in regards to sort of TSA rules, and it comes with the World Cup touching down in Los Angeles in a day's time. Let's listen in to what they had to say in Los Angeles.
To host FIFA World Cup 2026, we're proud to showcase our commitment to safety, operational readiness, and hospitality. This press conference brings together TSA and our Federal Air Marshal team to highlight our coordinated efforts to ensure a secure, efficient, and welcoming experience for all travelers to the World Cup and Los Angeles International Airport. And with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, TSA Federal Security Director for LAX, Jason Pantages.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Pantages, and I'm the Federal Security Director for the TSA at Los Angeles International Airport. Thank you for joining us today as we prepare to welcome the world to Los Angeles for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. With summer travel underway at airports nationwide, including here at LAX, we're already seeing sustained high travel volumes. With families, international visitors, sports fans, and business travelers passing through our airports. Adding to this busy summer is the FIFA World Cup, one of the largest sporting events in U.S. history. Between June 11th and July 19th, 48 teams will compete across 11 cities, including Los Angeles, which will host our first World Cup game tomorrow evening with the USA taking on Paraguay. We expect more than 6 million international visitors across host cities and base camps. During these 39 days, airports and venues will be among the safest and most secure places to be, thanks to visible and behind-the-scenes layers of security. TSA is at the forefront of a coordinated whole-of-government effort, working closely with federal, state, local, and industry partners to secure airports, surface transportation, and game venues. Our expert workforce, including frontline security officers, federal air marshals, intelligence officers, explosives detection canine teams, are all mobilized to deliver robust security and intelligence support. Coinciding with TSA's 25th anniversary, the World Cup will showcase our advanced security procedures and technologies, setting a new standard for international travel. World Cup visitors at LAX will experience enhanced airport security. Some of the items they'll experience: touchless technologies to minimize physical contact, including automated e-gates, which are over to our right, TSA pre-check touchless ID for hands-free identity verification. We have advanced scanners to reduce false alarms and pat-downs, computed tomography systems with AI-generated images, hundreds of canine teams screening vehicles, cargo, baggage, and passengers. Coupled with the fact that all passengers can now leave their shoes on, these upgrades deliver faster, smarter, and more secure screening. Travelers play an important role in what we do, and we rely on them to come to the checkpoint prepared. To help everyone enjoy a seamless World Cup experience, here's a couple of important tips. First, arrive early. Airports are much like highways. We have our rush hours. Here at LAX, it's early morning and mid-afternoon. We encourage travelers to pay close attention to their flight schedules, boarding times. As a rule of thumb, please arrive at least 2 hours before domestic flights and 3 hours before international flights. Second, bring an acceptable ID. Ensure you have your real ID, passport, or other acceptable form of identification ready when you come to a screening checkpoint. Passengers without an acceptable form of ID can pay a $45 fee to use Confirm ID. It's TSA's modernized alternative identity verification option. To save time, passengers are encouraged to do this before they get to the checkpoint so that they have this ready when they're ready to go through security screening. Pack smart. Start with an empty bag. It's one of the most important pieces. You want to start with an empty bag to make sure that there's no prohibited items in your bag when you're coming through a security checkpoint. This World Cup is not only a historic moment for our nation, but also a remarkable opportunity for TSA to demonstrate its excellence and leadership on the global stage. We're committed to delivering unmatched security and unprecedented efficiency, ensuring that every fan, family, and athlete enjoys a safe and seamless experience here in Los Angeles. Thank you, and we look forward to welcoming the world to Los Angeles. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Charles Fry, Supervisory Air Marshal in charge of the Los Angeles Field Office, to speak about his team and safeguarding venues and transportation hubs.
Good morning. My name is Charles Fry. I'm the Acting Supervisory Air Marshal in charge for the Federal Air Marshal Service, Los Angeles Field Office. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share how our Federal Air Marshals are enhancing the safety and security of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The Federal Air Marshal Service is delivering on 3 core mission sets. In-flight security remains a vital part of our mission, and Federal Air Marshals are being deployed on domestic, international flights arriving and departing the greater Los Angeles region and all 10 other host cities. Starting today, Federal Air Marshals will be conducting high visibility uniform operations at critical transit locations throughout downtown LA in connection with the FIFA Fan Festival at the LA Coliseum, and starting tomorrow at the Los Angeles Stadium for the World Cup games and all 8 games. We've been working in close coordination with the Inglewood Police Department, LAPD, LA County Sheriffs, and LA Metro to ensure fans get to their final destinations and enjoy the fan festivities. Last, and very exciting to me, Federal Air Marshals are leading the way when it comes to counter UAS or counter drone enforcement. I'm here to share how you can avoid a red card by knowing where drone use is prohibited. There are 3 primary no drone zones. First, since we're here at LAX, all airports, including LAX, have strict runway exclusionary zones. Exclusionary zones run parallel to each runway and extend 1 mile from each end, and they extend a half mile wide. To make it easier to visualize, think of it as a 1 mile buffer zone around the airport. Our Federal Air Marshals can detect, track, and identify unauthorized drones, and soon will be able to mitigate. Second, for the Fan Festival at the LA Coliseum, and the World Cup games at LA Stadium in partnership with the U.S.
Okay, so as you can hear, a lot of logistics talk there. We know that, but there's so many different angles to having the World Cup here in North America. We want to try to cover as many of them as possible. And going forward, there will be a lot more coverage of the soccer in particular. This is, of course, the first World Cup with 48 teams, a lot more teams, and an added stage. It won't just be knockout stage into 16, it'll be knockout stage into 32, then into the 16. So more games, more soccer, which is great, and certainly an easier opportunity for the United States to advance to the second round, and we'll see where they go from there. I would say second round is the expectation. Anything after that is probably exceeding expectations, though the third round, right in that realm. This United States team, a lot of talent, especially relative to past U.S. teams or past U.S. generations, but it's talent that has just not produced on the level of those past generations, especially that Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey class that came along and had some true World Cup success there in the early to mid-2000s. Now, as for us here on Live Impact News, we are going to take a break. After that break, we are going to welcome a special guest in here. Oh, that was interesting there, Naya. I like what you pulled up there. This is the stadium in Mexico City, and it looks like maybe some fireworks went off, or perhaps flares have already been set. In international soccer, a lot of times, and even in the MLS, you'll see fans in the stands lighting flares as a part of their celebration, an actual sort of still burning firework in the midst of the crowd at these games. It's entirely possible that is smoke from flares that have already been lit. After all, we're only an hour and 2 minutes away from the first game. Yeah, Nye.
Have the games already started?
3 o'clock p.m. will be the start of the game, but being that it's the World Cup opener, being that it's Mexico playing in Mexico City, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that stadium is already close to packed. I mean, we were doing our live stream this morning between 10 and 12, and we saw fans getting their tickets scanned, sort of streaming in. You know, if you go to an NFL game, you go early, you tailgate, you spend time there, maybe you get in the stadium a little early. My guess would be it's a similar vibe for a game that is this monumental here at the World Cup. Okay, as for us here, we will have plenty of coverage of the World Cup to come later on in the weeks and in the months after this. We are going to take a break here on Live Impact. Special guest coming up for an interview up next. All right, back here in studio, Live Impact News, and we welcome a special guest into the program now. This is Dr. Lauren Lee joining us today. Dr. Lee, we really appreciate you taking a little bit of time as we are at the advent of summer vacation for kids getting out of school and starting to enjoy their time off. First of all, it's great to meet you. I hope you're having a great Thursday. And secondly, what would be the first thing that you would want to stress to parents who are watching who are worried about what the summer will do in terms of increased screen time for their kids?
Well, I think what's most important, right, is to really understand how much we're talking about an increase in screen time is. You know, our research found that for kids that are 7 through 12, they increase their screen time by 30% during the summer months. What's even more interesting is that 75% of younger kids that we surveyed said that they would rather watch videos instead of play with actual toys. So what parents feel in terms of this concern around screen time is real, and it is widespread. If you look at even Toy Story 5 that's coming out, the villain in that movie is a tablet.
I saw that. You know, Pixar, creative as always, right? They somehow find a way to continue modernizing with these movies, and I'm very, very excited to see how that takes shape in Toy Story 5. So it's funny you bring that up. I should mention, of course, Dr. Lee, a clinical psychologist and a digital wellness expert with us here today talking about that screen time. Now, when it comes to the summer, is it simply because kids have more time on their hands? Is there anything else about this summer break that leads to more screen time? And I don't want to indicate too much, but is there a sense that now that they're not in school and they're not seeing friends every day, are they maybe using some of that screen time to stay in touch with everybody on a deeper level because they don't see them all the time?
Well, it's very interesting that you share that because, you know, we oftentimes think about screens as being a source of entertainment for our kids, but increasingly for this generation, it is becoming a social venue. I mean, we are seeing that kids are maintaining their friendships and exploring their identities and learning social norms on these various platforms. So they are serving multiple different functions or purposes for our kids today.
And would you say it's the case that the function of social interaction, the function of communication, does that have less negative impacts than the pure function of entertainment? Or do they both have kind of similar negative impacts? You know, what's the difference there?
Well, I think, you know, both of them are screen time. And one of the things that we need to consider is that we used to think that the absolute number of screen time was kind of the most important factor. Instead, today, you know, more modern guidance is that we need to understand what is the content that your children are looking at and how are they using it. So to your point, you know, sitting and watching YouTube videos, depending on what the YouTube videos are, may just be a passive form of low cognitive effort entertainment for your kid. But we do see that when children watch the same videos as their friends, it helps them to feel more connected to them. So it really could be serving both purposes.
An excellent point, and definitely one that I didn't consider. You know, so we know from this data that you've kind of presented for us here that screen time is unquestionably increasing generally for kids going into summertime. I'm wondering, what are the impacts of that? What are the negative effects that you'll see within the kids as that screen time goes up?
Well, when you start to see that your child's mood, sleep, stress, or behavior is starting to be impacted by screen time, it could be a sign that their digital well-being is low. And we found in our research that 1 in 3 children experiences low digital well-being during the summer. So really not just screen time, but here's a couple of other behaviors I want parents to be on the lookout for. The first is late night device use. The second is sudden changes in the apps or platforms your kids are using. The next is withdrawal from offline activities they enjoy. And the last is mood shifts that happen after they've been online.
And I think all of those make sense to me, except for one that caught me off guard, which is the change in platforms. How does that manifest as something you should look out for? What does that indicate?
Well, part of the challenge that we have is, sites like Roblox and YouTube and social media platforms, they're really becoming like this generation's malls and neighborhood hangout spots. So while that is true, unlike physical spaces, because these platforms are available to our kids 24/7, that means they can overdo it on them, but it also means that it can expose them to risks at a much larger scale. So depending on the platform, right, it's going to guide what they're doing, and it's important for parents to really understand how what your kids are doing and seeing online is impacting them offline.
Yeah, I'm wondering as well, in terms of solutions, how do you kind of prevent that spike from happening as we go into the summer?
Well, I think what's important for parents to hear is good news, and that is that kids really still crave real world connection. I mean, over half of the kids that we've surveyed have shared with us that they know too much screen time is not good for them. And when we asked them what they were most looking forward to this summer, it wasn't staring at their tablet, it was playing with friends and being outside. So my advice really for parents is simple here. It's not to eliminate screens, but it is to create balance in your child's life. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. I mean, one of them is with Aura Parents. We have a 90s summer quiz that can help you start to shift some of your child's favorite online activities into offline fun that's good for them. We created this in partnership with Common Sense Media. But as parents, you can also use tools like Aura Parents to help get better insights into your kids' screen habits and their digital well-being so that you can have more meaningful conversations with them and support those healthier habits over time.
Okay, Aura Parents, lots of resources there to try to help. Last question for you here, Dr. Lee, and this is maybe a little bit niche. It might be a silly question. So if a kid is in the house on their phone all day versus maybe a kid who is outside with their friends but also on the phone all day, is it healthier to be outside on your phone all day than inside on your phone all day? Is there a difference there?
Well, I would say that getting fresh air and getting that vitamin D in the sun, which is commonly the case in the summers at least, does have health benefits for you, right? Again, what are they doing on their phones? And are they doing it at the exclusion of having real world interactions? That's really what I would be focusing on a little bit more than the location that they're at.
Okay, so if you're with friends and you're on your phone and you're all openly kind of physically in the same space, talking about what you're watching, sharing laughs about what you're watching, maybe transitioning from the screen into a real world conversation about things, that's actually maybe a healthy compromise here at least, or a little better than sort of that isolated engagement?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Dr. Lauren Lee, we really appreciate you joining us today and providing some insight here. And remember, Aura Parents, A-U-R-A Parents, a great tool, a great resource to try to help with some of this. Dr. Lee, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, so, we talk about screen time quite a bit here on 13 News Now and on this program, and it's relatively uniform in the way we discuss it, but it's interesting to now sort of explore how that may change throughout the seasons, right? Going into summer, especially for kids. How are those risks elevated and how can you prevent it? And then I like what Dr. Lee said there about how in some of their questionnaires, there is clearly a desire for kids to be outside, be hanging out with their friends, be doing social activities, provide them those opportunities, and they may lead themselves away from the phone. So a great job there from Dr. Lee. Now we're going to take another commercial break here on Live Impact News. When we get back, we'll explore some new live events. And I want to do something here. I want to take a thumbs up from Matthew, and we're going to bring on Matthew Foltz. He is going to take over the anchor chair when we come out of this break. Matthew Foltz is going to lead us through the rest of Live Impact News today. If you remember, we introduced Matthew yesterday. He's one of our newest journalists here at 13 News Now. He's done a great job so far, and he'll be taking over Live Impact News. I know some of you guys are cheering, and you're excited to hear this news, and that's upsetting, but we're still happy to have Matthew come on. We'll see you after the break.
All right, welcome back, everyone. It is 2:14 on your Thursday afternoon. I am Matthew Foltz, taking over for Connor, again, like you mentioned, for about the next 45 minutes or so. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here on 13 News Now team and to give you a background of who I am. I grew up in New Kent County, so not too far up 64 West, heading towards Richmond, and I've been doing news for about the last decade and a half. So I just came from our sister station, WTHR in Indianapolis, Indiana, was our weekend anchor and a reporter during the week. So still getting settled here in at 13 News Now, learning the ropes of live impact news, which I'll be taking over during the week, during the 10 a.m. hour. So just excited to be here and learning this as we all go with you guys. So lots of news happening today. We do know that right now over at the White House, Secretary Marco Rubio was giving a presser ahead of the UFC Freedom 250 fight that's going to take place this Sunday at the White House. Let's dip into them really quick if they are still going on. It looks like they're wrapping up, they're walking out, but we'll learn more about that, about what happened. We do know he, again, giving a press briefing ahead of that fight set to take place this Sunday. We know President Trump has been big talking about that over the last few weeks on building that stage. But we do know that Senator Mark Warner also talked to the Virginia press earlier today. So we're going to play some of that press and what he had to say.
Obviously, a very busy week. Unfortunately, earlier this week, the president signed the reconciliation bill, which, if I can remind you, is $70 billion for ICE and CBP. That's on top of the over $140 billion that went into ICE and these agencies in the big ugly bill. ICE now has a bigger budget than the FBI. It has a bigger budget than the French army. And, I think ICE plays a critical role, not against the notion of ICE, but I do believe there need to be reforms. We saw the tragedy in Minneapolis, but we've also seen the kind of violence that's taking place now up in Newark, New Jersey, at a facility. I think the vast majority of Americans want guardrails on ICE. And again, let's be clear, cut to the chase. What we want ICE to operate is under the same rules that our state police and our local police operate. Identify themselves, don't wear these masks all the time, operate on good policing protocols. And we thought we were going to see progress on that, but then the administration shut down. So that $70 billion borrowed as well to go to ICE at the same time that we are cutting health care. We've had 33,000 Virginians lose health insurance from the Obamacare cuts. We'll see 300,000 more after November when the Medicaid cuts come in. I've seen 13 Virginia rural hospitals say they may close. And this is where we're going to put our resources as opposed to health care. So I think a huge mistake. And it's one of the reasons why the president's at record lows in terms of numbers. On a more optimistic note, had a great session Monday with families, military families down in Hampton Roads. Many of the families there had family members that were either deployed on the Ford or part of the carrier group. They've been deployed for the longest deployment since the Vietnam War. We've got to do a much better job across the country, but particularly in Hampton Roads, of retaining and helping our military families. The president has asked for $1.5 trillion on a defense budget, but no increase in military health care benefits, housing benefits, all of the things that keep the force strong. We came up with a list of action items. We've already contacted DOD to say, these military spouses, if the deployment goes beyond what was projected, they ought to get a little more flexibility in work schedules. We want to make sure that there's some additional reimbursements on TRICARE, because more and more providers are not taking TRICARE, and unfortunately it is really undermining the quality of care for our active duty. We had a good conversation about, if you're a spouse or a veteran or a family member, you got PTSD. You get a list of 100 providers on mental health, but you don't know who's taking, who's got openings. So we've got a working group together, and this is a case where we could be the model for the country. We've got local governments that are interested in helping both active duty and veterans. We've got the state, and I was proud when I was governor to dramatically increase the amount of state services to our veterans. We've obviously got a lot of federal entities, and then we've got a whole host of nonprofit organizations. What they don't do a great job of talking to each other and providing an easy front end to that military spouse or family or even veteran. And so we've got a plan, and I have more to say about this. It could be a really good news story on how we help our military families. And Virginia could be the lead on this, both in terms of helping our families, but also retaining folks as they phase out of the military. Veterans are a great workforce. We lose too many after they serve in Virginia to go elsewhere. If we could be the place that provides that support network between the nonprofit and governmental sector, that could be great for the Hampton Roads community and all of Virginia. It's not just Hampton Roads, but Hampton Roads, obviously the biggest concentration. Two other items. One, I announced legislation to increase cybersecurity using CISA. CISA is the voluntary organization between the private sector and the government to make sure we have cybersecurity standards. We have let those lapse in many cases, particularly now as we enter into an era where this tool called Mythos that came out of Anthropic, which was able to basically penetrate all of our classified systems and almost all of our private systems, we have to increase our cybersecurity protections right now. Increasingly, I mean, the director of Cyber Command, the general in charge of Cyber Command, told me recently, after Mythos, the whole nature of warfare has changed because of the vulnerability. You can't use your radar, you can't use your satellites, you can't use all of our technology-based weapons if they're hacked into and crippled. So we have to really up our game, particularly as we see the advent of artificial intelligence coming. And this is an area that should be a no-brainer and bipartisan, but unfortunately, the Trump administration, which created CISA in its first term and helped build up a worthy entity, has cut over a third of its employees and cut back on its capabilities. And I can nerd out on some of the ISAC tools that are out there. But at a very time when we need to increase our protections against China, Russia, Iran, North Korea on the cyber front, and that expanded by AI, this administration is unilaterally disarming. So my legislation would put those resources back and reinvigorate these tools to make sure we're protected. Finally, and I'll wait for questions on FISA 702 if you want, which I'm in the middle of. But the final comment I want to make is, again, the ongoing effects of this war of choice with Iran. The president has said 30 different times in the last few weeks that the war is over. Obviously, the war is not over. If anything, the president seems to be escalating. None of the goals the president had of regime change, securing the enriched uranium, making sure that Iran didn't have the ability to strike back, which they are clearly striking back against our allies in the region, and making sure the Strait of Hormuz is open. None of that is happening. And while we've seen gas prices tick down a little bit, they're still about $4.20, 25 cents. Every expert has said we have so depleted all of the world's kind of reserves that by July 4th, those prices, even if the president declares victory tomorrow, are going to skyrocket back up. And this is not just about gas prices. It's about grocery prices, which has most of their goods delivered by trucks that run on diesel. It's about airline prices. The airline tickets are skyrocketing. It's about aluminum costs. And again, don't believe me, inflation last quarter was over 4%. That's about as bad as the worst days under Biden. And you got, again, this is what happens when a president starts a war of choice and doesn't have a full-fledged plan. And Americans are going to be paying for that at the pump, at the grocery store, if they try to travel, and virtually even declaring victory, none of that is going to get reversed quickly, and that's unfortunate. So with that, I will turn it over to Kath and be happy to take your questions.
Senator, our first question is from Mitchell with WTOP.
Good morning, Senator. Thanks a lot for joining us. As you would expect, I'm going to ask you a question about FISA. Speaker Johnson today accused Democrats of holding Section 702 hostage for political reasons. And at the same time, Bill Pulte this week apparently tried to notify Tulsi Gabbard he was ready to immediately take over for her, although that didn't happen. I wanted to get your thoughts on those developments and the possibility that this program could potentially go dark.
Section 702 is a critical tool that we use to protect Americans. If it goes dark, one person will be responsible, Donald Trump. This is always a controversial item to get renewed, but we were working in a bipartisan way to have a bill that would renew FISA for 3 years with additional reforms. 10 days ago, the president threw a live hand grenade in putting forward an individual with no qualifications to be the Director of National Intelligence, Bill Pulte. His only qualification is being a Trump hatchet man, and he has shown a complete disregard of any kind of confidential information. You know, if he couldn't keep mortgage information secret, thinks what he'll do if he's in charge of all of our intelligence agencies. And the law is clear. The law says if you want to nominate somebody, they've got to have national security experience. He has zero. And even my Republican friends have said the same. And we're now at an emergency. So if I am more than happy to do a short-term extension if the president follows the law. The law says if the Director of National Intelligence leaves, the acting becomes the number two. The number two is a Trump-appointed, Senate-confirmed 25-year professional, Mr. Lucas. He becomes the interim. I'll sign off on a 3-week, 4-week extension today. But no, you've got the president disregarding the law again. Frankly, I disagreed with Tulsi Gabbard, but I never questioned her qualifications. And Pulte already going in trying to fire her. This is outrageous. And please look at, people will scream and shout. I've been clear. This is not Republican Senate problem. We were working in good faith. Even on this one, I think even the Speaker has tried to work in good faith. We had presented, with working with people in the cabinet, a series of off-ramps for the president. He rejected them. People will do the pointing back and forth, but there is no one in the national security domain that doesn't, you get them to tell the truth, they will say, if this goes dark, the person responsible is Donald Trump. And again, I keep questioning whether he even wants this to be renewed. Because, Mitchell, a couple of months ago, we had all of the intelligence community in saying how important 702 was. And then we said, well, what is the position of the Trump White House? They had no position. It's only been in the last 6 or 7 weeks that Trump White House has even came out in favor of 702. Totally irresponsible. I hope there is cooler heads will prevail. But one person responsible here, Donald Trump. And I think, again, look at the comments of particularly my Senate Republican colleagues who've said, this is a White House problem.
Senator, our next question is from Audra with Sinclair Broadcast Group. Audra, are you there? Okay,
Hi.
our next question is from...
Hi. So I have my quick question is, what are you planning to do to help those who rely on Social Security, and who have been paying into it for years only to get ready to retire and not being able to use as much as they were into planning, like use?
Well, listen, I've had a plan for Social Security for over a decade that said we've got to raise the cap so those of us who've done well can pay more in. At the same time, we need to, and the cut line could have been earlier, but we need to say to people under 35 or under 30, you may have to wait an extra year, the same thing that happened back in 1983 between President Reagan and then Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, and that what we ought to do is make Social Security solvent for 50 years, and then every 10 years you've got to make it solvent for the next 50 years going forward. It was a logical, rational program, a proposal that came out of the Simpson Bowles and my Gang of Six in 2011 and 12. Unfortunately, both parties have punted. And Social Security is actually the easiest one to fix because it's math. The thing is, people are living longer. That's great. But if you're only paying in a small amount and that's not adjusted up for those of us who have the ability to pay in a little bit more, and people are living longer, obviously there's not going to be enough left in the pot. I think Social Security is sacrosanct. I think we absolutely have an obligation to protect it. And we could fix it by raising the cap, making it solvent for 50 years, and yes, looking at a slight age adjustment for people under 30 or 35. I've not met a single person under 30 or 35 that really thinks they're going to get Social Security. So saying you may have to wait an extra year to get it, I had no pushback.
Senator, our next question is from Michael with Richmond Times-Dispatch.
Good morning, Senator.
All right, you were listening to Senator Mark Warner kind of go over a lot of subjects, including ICE funding, AI, as well as cybersecurity. But we're going to head to a short little break and then come back. We're going to pick up where Marco Rubio was speaking at the White House earlier. So we're going to play a little bit of that presser once we get back. Your time is 2:31. We'll be right back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. We have some news just into our newsroom. We now are learning that President Donald Trump has called off new military strikes on Iran. So this comes earlier after he threatened to hit Iran, quote, very hard tonight. So we want to show you the Truth Social post that he posted not too long ago. So you can see it there, right there on your screen. I'm going to read part of it. It says, quote, based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest level of Iranian leadership and approved, I have, as President of the United States of America, cancel this scheduled strikes and bombings against Iran this evening. And it goes on to say that the naval blockade will remain in full force and effect until this transaction is finalized. So, of course, this is a developing story that we've just gotten into our newsroom. We'll continue to follow this throughout the day and keep you posted. So we do know that this has been a big topic, of course, over the last several weeks. And, of course, we will see any new updates throughout the evening on what the president has to say. But we do also want to be able to get you back to that press briefing that we talked about earlier in the hour from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as well as Dana White, UFC president. Both of them spoke at a presser on the White House lawn ahead of UFC Freedom 250 fight that will take place this Sunday at the White House. Now, we do not know if Rubio commented on the president's remarks. We just want to clarify that before we head into this presser, but take a listen to what they had to say.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming today. I don't know how I could say it better than those two did, but obviously we come from very humble beginnings when we first bought this company 25 years ago. And we believed at that time that this thing would work everywhere and would work all over the world. I've always had this philosophy that, thank God, ended up being true. It doesn't matter what color you are, what country you come from, what language you speak, we're all human beings and fighting's in our DNA. We get it and we like it. I've laid in my hotel room in England many times trying to figure out cricket. Never going to happen, but fighting in any language, as humans, we all get it. And what's been fascinating in our run over the last 25 years is how, when we go into these different countries, presidents of the countries or royal families from these different countries, everybody loves the fights. And more importantly, if somebody looks like you, talks like you, and comes from where you come from, and they're looked at as the best in the world when it comes to fighting, the entire country rallies around them, and it's a pretty powerful thing. So I want to thank Secretary Rubio for all of his support, and like Lawrence said, we are absolutely honored to be here and to be a part of this. Thank you, everybody.
It's my turn to speak, right? It's my turn? Well, listen, this is first of all, it'll be an exciting weekend, but an exciting opportunity to sign this. It's totally logical for us to do it. I want to make a couple points. People may ask, well, why UFC? We had this deal with the NFL too, but why UFC? So I have a couple reasons why that I think is very powerful. Here's the first. The first is America, and the ideal behind America is the impossible. That someone tells you can't do that, or that's never going to happen. The whole idea of America is audacious. The very idea that America, that you could have a country where founded on the principle that your rights come not from your government or from your leaders, your rights come from your creator, was an audacious idea. No one else believed that at the world at that time. And that's the foundation. But then beyond that, everything we've done since then as a nation, time and again, how can you achieve some of the things, we're going to put a man on the moon. When President Kennedy announced that we were going to put a man on the moon and return him safely to the earth, no one thought that was possible, and we did it. We are a nation founded on doing what no one else dared to do and no one else aspired to do. And at some level, that's what this whole company, what UFC has been. You see, mixed martial arts is not new. It's been around now for about 30 years, I would say, maybe 35, but there were no rules, there was no structure. I remember the early fights, I used to watch them back in the day, and it was, you could get like a 170-pound Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy fighting a 250-pound heavyweight who was a striker. I was like, how do you put this? The rules weren't clarified. And Dana and the people around him had a vision, and that is to create a structure around this company, to give it rules, to define it by weight class, to structure the events, and it attracted some of the best athletes in the world. And what you've built now is this global company that not so long ago would have seemed impossible. Back in the day when boxing commissions, that's what they're called, or athletic commissions, were a little bit reluctant to give you permits to stage these fights or put on these events, or when no one knew what it was, you were able to plow through that. And today you have one of the most recognizable American sports brands on the planet. And in and of itself, I think reflects so much the American spirit is reflected in this American company. Here's the second point. It truly is the United Nations of fighting. If you think about the number of countries that are represented, and I think that roster will continue to grow, Lawrence, I really do. I think the number of people and champions you're going to get from around the world will continue to be added. And I can tell you this is true, and I can tell you about your global reach because the president, and I have another job and spend a lot of time at the White House, the number of foreign leaders that want to come to this is unbelievable. It's to the point where we may have a diplomatic crisis because it's like, we can't bring everybody. And so they follow, and some of them don't even have a fighter in the fight from their country. They just want to come because they are fans of the sport and they follow it. But to be honest with you, some of the countries that are represented in these fights, most Americans, because it's not their job to track this, have never heard of that country in their life. Have never heard about their country, have never heard about that person, where they came from, until they saw a fighter from that nation step into the ring. And between that and the bios that sometimes come with the profiles leading up to the fight, it is also educating Americans about cultures, societies all over the world. The third is the power of convening. You know, we have very few things left in our society, and I would say in the world, that convenes us all. We are so divided by so many different things. You know, we get our news from different places. We follow different accounts online. We do everything separate from one another in this country, and I would say increasingly around the world. We are so polarized. There are only a handful of things that bring people together in one place at one time, united by their interest in one thing. We need more of those. We need more of those forums and those settings in which we can bring people together to enjoy something together and find something in common. And if you've been to UFC fights, and I've been to many, and you look into the crowd, I mean, the crowd is as diverse as you can imagine. And I'm not talking about ethnic background. I'm talking about economic background. I'm talking about social background. I'm talking about geographic. This is one of those few things we have left in our country, and I would say in the world, that brings so many people from so many different places, so many different backgrounds, and so many different points of view together for a few hours to enjoy one thing in common. And the bonding power of that is incredible. And it's something we want to share with the world, which is why making the sports diplomacy such an important agreement we're going to sign today. The last point I would make is it is my view, and I am very impressed by a man who's 6'9" or 6'10" that can run like a gazelle and dunk a basketball. Although if you're 6'10", I mean, the rim is only 10 feet tall, so you're halfway, or more than halfway there. But I think NBA players are incredible athletes. I always say that there are plenty of people in the NBA that could play in the NFL, and I love the NFL, but I don't think there are very many people in the NFL that could play in the NBA. But it is my personal view, that some of, if not the greatest fighters, some of the greatest athletes in the world are the men and women on your roster. Because it doesn't just involve endurance and strength, it involves physical courage, it involves the ability to fight through pain. In fact, was it in Miami a few weeks ago? We were watching one of the fights, and I don't want to call anybody out, but I think the guy, did he tear his ACL in that the last fight? His knee was hurt. Like, he would not have made it to that second round. And he scored in the last 30 seconds a knockout. You think about the courage. Like, if I tear my ACL, like, I'm done, right? Most people, like, you tear your ACL or you blow out your knee. He blew out his knee. You're done. And this guy went another 2.5 minutes with a blown out knee and scored a last-second knockout, because if he probably doesn't even make it out of the corner in the second round, because he's in danger with a lame leg like that. Think about the courage that takes. Think about how inspiring that is for the crowd to see something like that. It speaks to the human spirit, and you very rarely get to see that anymore in many of the sports. And there's not a criticism of any of those sports, but it's a testament to this one. And why we're so excited, not just about Sunday night, but we're excited about what this brand means about America's ability to expand and reach out to different parts of the world. You will see these cards, you're hosting them in 17 or 18 different jurisdictions. That's going to grow, in my opinion. And as you grow more countries that you go to and do this, but in the end, it will be an American company and an American brand that's bringing this sport, even though it may be their fighters, bringing this sport to those places. And that is the definition of American soft diplomatic power. And so we're excited to sign this today, and we're really excited about Sunday. We're never going to see anything like that again, guys, ever. I was there late last night. They were testing the pyrotechnics. I'm not going to give away anything other than to say they work. It was good. Secret Service wasn't as excited by the explosions, but everybody else. And what they built out there was phenomenal. We'll never see it again. Although the president's threatening to leave it permanently. You heard that, right? He's threatening to leave the, just don't know, maybe, we'll just host weekly fights between people in politics, and and settle our scores that way. But all kidding aside, Sunday is an unbelievable, historic, I think never to be repeated until next year experience for the American people to be able to see a sport. This is where I want to close. And I made this point earlier. We were doing a little interview about it. The White House is the people's house. It belongs to the people of the United States. The American 250 celebration belongs to the people of the United States. And there are millions and millions of Americans from all walks of life that are not necessarily attuned to politics or the financial markets or anything else, but they love the sport. And every Saturday, if you've got a big event once a month, they're tuning in and they're watching and they host it. For them to be able to see this event with their White House in the background as part of our celebration as a country in our 250 years, I think is a gift to the American people. That's what Sunday is about. It's a gift to the American people. They're going to see their White House in their capital on their nation's birthday, celebrating with a historic event. We could have had a band, and we have great bands. We could have done a Shakespeare in the Park production. There are a lot of things we could have done with it, but this one will have people watching, probably over, 1 billion people all over the world. 1 billion people all over the world will be watching America celebrate its 250th birthday with the White House in the background and some of the best athletes in the world in that octagon. And we're happy to be a part of that, and we're happy to be a part of all the things we're going to be working on together in the years to come. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for covering it. Thank you guys for coming. The State Department, a lot of people here work at the State Department. We have members of the Diplomatic Corps. They get invited to a lot of meetings, but not many like this one. So this is great. Thank you. All right.
All right, everyone. You just heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Dana White, UFC president, give a UFC briefing ahead of that UFC Freedom 250 fight, which will take place on the White House lawn this Sunday. But we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to chime back in with Connor. We're going to discuss that historic NBA Finals night, Game 4 between the Spurs and the Knicks. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. 2:48 on your Thursday afternoon. Before we get into that discussion of the Knicks and Spurs game, we're going to bring Connor back in and just, Connor, you have a recap of some of the big stories that took place this morning.
Well, first, what we want to do is say what a phenomenal job by Matthew on his first sort of 45 minutes in that anchor chair. Not just good, a great job, Matthew, and we're going to see Matthew in that chair a lot more going forward. And you and I have been working together to catch you up to speed, which you did so very quickly. You've now done a good job in your first sort of official shift on the air, and I now have no choice but to turn my back on you and begin to sabotage you, because it is clear that you are very good at this, and I got to secure my spot. But we've got another 15 minutes here where we can work our way through this. Just 2 updates from our morning stream. Number 1, Governor Abigail Spanberger this morning in Newport News signing a first-in-the-nation legislative package aimed at transforming sickle cell care in Virginia. That happened again this morning in Newport News, and Governor Spanberger very clearly passionate about this, got emotional while speaking about this legislation. So history made in Newport News with Governor Abigail Spanberger here in Hampton Roads. Elsewhere in Congress, the House of Representatives declined to pass a temporary measure to keep FISA open, aka or to renew FISA, I guess is a better way to say that. Section 702 in particular of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, otherwise known as FISA. 19 Republicans sided with Democrats, nearly all Democrats, in rejecting the temporary measure that would renew that section of, again, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This is a surveillance tool that allows the United States to collect intelligence abroad without a warrant. Critics of that particular section have stated that it could infringe on Americans' liberties and really Americans' privacies if used in a certain way. However, the main reason it did not pass today is because Democrats and really those voting against it are insisting that President Trump choose a different person to be the director of national intelligence after his original pick as the acting director, Bill Pulte, took on an immense amount of criticism, really, and in particular, a review of his resume that revealed essentially no intelligence experience. So for this particular vote, lawmakers sort of using this as leverage to try and push President Trump to pick somebody else to be the director of national intelligence after Bill Pulte, who plied his trade and spent his time in government in the housing sector, has been appointed to that post as of now. President Trump so far has not changed that choice. We'll continue to cover that story as we're sure there'll be more developments to come. All right, those are your updates from the morning. We've got a few more minutes in show, Matthew. What should we get into here?
I guess we got to talk about the crazy Knicks versus Spurs game, man.
We have got to talk about Knicks versus Spurs. One of the great games in the history of basketball, period. And certainly the biggest comeback in NBA Finals history. The New York Knicks down 29 points at one point at home against the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs could not miss. The Knicks come all the way back to win by a point.
Crazy.
What stands out to you?
Do we really want to get real about it?
Get real about it.
What stood out to me was it was just crazy coaching and performance by the Spurs. I mean, 29 points.
29 points. You should never lose a finals game when you're up 29 points.
No. I think their biggest mistake was jacking up threes in the third quarter when they were already up by more than 20 points. I mean, at that point, you take out some of your key players, you rest them for a little bit, you get a few veterans in there, get Barnes in there, maybe get a few reps with him, and then just go through your sets and then try to get a good shot but run out the clock and just play solid defense.
And that's Matthew's alluding to it. It's a very young Spurs team. Their best player is 22. Their second best player is 21. They have a very, very significant lack of experience in the playoffs, period, much less the finals. And I think you saw that play out, right? Most teams who have been through these battles know that a finals game is never over, and that very specifically you have to shut the door emphatically. You do not mess around. You do not play with your food, as they say in a finals game, and the Spurs had to learn that the hard way. So on one hand, you've got the collapse of the San Antonio Spurs. On the other hand, we have to wonder if New York City is still standing at this point. At one point, the announcer, Mike Breen, said that the building, the Madison Square Garden, was physically shaking.
Wow.
And sometimes we watch sports and you can see the camera shaking. That was going on in there as well. New York City popping last night.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're a New York fan, really, you have something to celebrate. I mean, this was historic. I mean, OG Anunoby, that tip, I mean, incredible. So
what do we got? With about 10 seconds left, the Knicks have the ball, maybe even 8, 6 seconds left. The Knicks have the ball. They're
Yeah.
down 1. Jalen Brunson, their superstar, puts up a 3. That 3 misses.
Yep.
Ball is up for grabs for a rebound, and OG Anunoby comes flying through the lane to tip the ball in with 1 second left and give the Knicks a 1-point lead.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, and I think you give credit to Cat as well too on that last defensive inbound play.
Mhm.
He tipped that, so I think had his finger had not tipped that inbound pass, I think Castle would have probably got the alley-oop layup, maybe a foul, and that could have sent it, for them. So
I'm glad you brought that up. I feel like not a lot of people are talking about that.
Yeah.
The Knicks had their biggest player guard the inbounder on the possession with 1 second left. Right? Typically, you're so worried about what's happening on the floor. Guarding the inbounder, critical. Karl Anthony Towns, all 7 feet of him, just tipped that ball, which prevented the Spurs from getting a last-second shot up. So we have the greatest comeback in finals history. Now, I've got sort of 2 tracks of mind thinking about this when it comes to Game 5.
Yeah.
It's now a 3-1 series. I think most teams would fold in this situation. They're down 3-1, insurmountable odds unless you have prime LeBron James.
Yeah.
And they just had their hearts ripped out in the most publicly, shameful fashion that we've ever seen on a basketball court. But this Spurs team is unique in 2 ways. 1, they have always responded in big moments.
Yeah.
And 2, I almost feel like they're too young to understand the situation. They're
I
so
agree.
naive that they're just going to go out and play because they don't even quite realize the gravity of what's just happened.
Yeah.
We've seen that as well. How do you see Game 5 going here?
I mean, I agree with you. It could go 2 ways. They could come out, they could set a tone and still try to save this thing. I think it could still go 7 games. It could.
Yeah.
Because Spurs have really led the first halves in almost every single game.
Every game has been close, and the Spurs have been right there every single game.
Exactly. So I think if they really sit down and say, hey, if they look at social media, I'm pretty sure all the sports talk shows this morning, they're going to be like, okay, we are humiliated just now. And so I think if they look at that and take that to heart and say, hey, we don't want this to happen again, I think we could see another repeat of a 3-1 comeback. Or Nick say, hey, let's put this away and
Put
get
it
the
away.
job done. Or it's like, hey, do we let them get Game 5 and we come back and celebrate? at
Don't
home
let
with
them
Game
get. What
6?
did we just see? Do not
Yeah.
let them get any Game 5. What is worse, the comeback you saw last night or 28-3 Patriots Falcons Super Bowl? The Patriots come back from 25 points down to win the Super Bowl. What do you think is a worse collapse, Atlanta or San Antonio?
Oh, man. Probably San Antonio.
Going San Antonio.
Yeah.
Okay. That just shows how intense this was. ABC, Saturday night, 8:30 p.m., Spurs Knicks. The Knicks could take home a title, or the Spurs could end this or kind of extend this thing. Now, Matthew, wonderful job.
Thank you,
Please
thank you.
close the show, sir.
All right. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We will see you tomorrow morning here at 10 a.m. on Live News Impact. And have a great day. Stay cool out there as well.